Welcome to another episode of the Yes As Yet Unnamed podcast. I am Swaku, and with my co-host John, and you're listening to the second part of a series looking at the second wave of the New Blood decks. There'll be more videos in this series as we go through the new decks. So far it's been alphabetical, which is great. As per my original prediction. Yay me, yay us.
Hey. So today we'll be looking at the Brujah New Blood deck. So from the Black Chantry website, this deck relies on a combination of political shrewdness and anarch tactics, and the supernatural strength and speed of your vampires will deter any opposition.
Before I head into the stats, I just want to say anarch tactics here feels like a cop-out in the blurb. It's an anarch deck, like what else is it gonna rely on?
Sure.
Alright, so quick stats of the deck. 54 cards, 6 vampires, 6 unique vampires, 4 unique titles, and an average capacity of 6. 48 library cards, get about 20% masters, about 20% action, and near 20% reaction, and then the rest is mainly combat. It's a smattering of politics and equipment. So far it's true to its reliance on a strength and speed to deter your opposition, as well as a little bit of political shrewdness. Looking at the new cards, the new arts, and some notable reprints, there are 2 new crit cards. And I think this, correct me if I'm wrong, John, but I think this is the only New Blood deck in this series that has an actual new library card.
That sounds about right.
If we accidentally uncover more, you guys can get into the comments. I don't care. Anyway, 2 new crit cards, 1 new library card. First one is Anita Wainwright. She is a 3 capacity anarch Brujah with inferior celerity and inferior presence. I think she's okay. Like before we started this recording, he was saying that she's solid, she's decent, but really there's not much to really talk about here, I don't think.
Yep. I mean, she's got the 2 of the 3 disciplines that you care about the most, in my opinion. Presence and celerity lets you play illegalism with the 2 easier to access disciplines. They let you play
diversion. I like diversion.
Diversion is fine. Lion brawl, again, at the 2 options that I think you would use more often.
Yep. And if you decide, I think, to go in a political direction, he does have sneaky access to Scalpel Town, which isn't in this deck, but I just wanted to point that out. So that's Anita Wainwright, the new 3 cap Anarch vampire. The next up is a new 8 capacity Brujah Baron. It's Saku. I think the pronunciation here is Pilayamaki. It's a 8 capacity Brujah Anarch Baron of Helsinki. Saku gets 1 optional maneuver each combat, and he has inferior fortitude, inferior protean, superior celerity, superior potence, and superior presence. So in case anyone hasn't already known, his art is based on the likeness of a long-time VtES player and volunteer, Jan Longquist, and apparently the dreadlocks is real, or are real. So Saku brings the number of Brujah Barons up to 5. When I say number of Brujah Barons up to 5, I mean in group 5 and 6. I think there's a smattering outside of group 5 and 6. But within group 5 and 6, that gives Brujah 5 Barons. And I think that might be relevant in the context of, having organized resistance, bait and switch, New Carthage, and then now the Child of Revolution, which we will see in a bit. I like him. I think the only issue I had, and I think you would agree with me here, John, is that he doesn't quite work with the idea of Brujah debate in the deck.
Right, so he at an 8 cap he becomes the oldest vampire, so you don't have the, if you're playing all the Brujah Barons, he's going to be the one getting locked. But ideally you would want Aileen to be the one debating, because she has her unlock text. So that's a 1 and 3 synergy that is present with Saku. The other one is he gets an optional maneuver, which is mostly superfluous when you're getting 2 or 3 out of a Brujah debate.
I think he's a solid addition in the greater scheme of things, but within this deck, yeah, he does feel a little bit out of place.
Exactly. Yeah. Is definitely a fine vampire. Force March is a good card. He can play it, and of course all of the good Baron Brujah nonsense. It's just that he doesn't really fit into the Brujah debate and archetype, I don't think.
No. And I think especially because even if you don't, draw into your Brujah debates, or your Brujah debates on the table, it doesn't even benefit from having, say, Enchant Kindred in the deck. So, outside of this, the New Blood deck, having him Enchant Kindred down a couple of times, bring out a couple of vamps before, getting him locked into the whole debate requirement is still not too bad in a pinch, I guess. But yeah. Next up is the Child of Revolution. There's a new library card of this series of New Blood decks. It is a action that costs 1 blood, +1 stealth action, requires a non-sterile Baron. Put this card into play, it becomes a 1 capacity non-unique Anarch vampire of the same clan as the acting vampire and must hunt this turn. You can search your library, shuffle afterwards, hand and or ash heap for a Discipline Master card and put it on this new vampire. There is a running theme, if you haven't really noticed, that Barons are kind of getting the not quite Camarilla toys. So they had Organized Resistance, which was not quite second tradition, and then now they have Child of Revolution, which is a not quite third tradition progeny.
Yep.
I think there is a slight difference in the two card decks. Progeny cannot act the turn they come into play, but the sire or the vampire that took the action can move blood from themselves onto the progeny. Whereas the Child of Revolution has similar text to the Embrace, where it comes into play and it must hunt. I think depending on how much intercept your meta has, Child may be a better or worse sort of progeny.
Yeah. So when the card name was spoiled, I think we had some spoilers with the deck list, but we weren't quite aware what Child of the Revolution would be. Just looking at the card list and the name of the card and it being a Brujah debate deck, it was a pretty, I feel like it was a safe bet. There was a breed action, and I was kind of concerned that they might push the limit in terms of blood cost, because what was it, bait and switch, pretty efficient as a bounce, right? So I was kind of worried that Child of the Revolution might just be free, or something silly like that. And it sort of is, right? It costs 1, but the vampire that you make can act immediately and hunt. So at the end of the day, at the end of the turn, your blood total hasn't gone down really.
Yeah.
Assuming it all goes off without getting blocked. It's quite cost effective.
It is. And I think the fact that it is an Anarch vampire as opposed to a Camarilla vampire is relevant too, just because Anarchs can get away with playing inferior disciplines as opposed to having like needing superior to make things relevant.
Yeah, definitely. Previously, only having Embrace as the breed option in Anarchs meant that, well, for one, it was quite blood intensive, and two, you don't get that free discipline. As you said, Anarchs can get a lot of work done with a single inferior discipline.
Yep, so that's the 3 new cards in the deck. Just do a quick run through of the reprints. So Brujah Debate, we have been talking about it for a bit. It's got new art, and this was last reprinted in 2004. Diversion has been reprinted with a new art that was spoiled in the one of the recent BKN newsletters. Assuming you're watching this video podcast when it drops. Lumiere, it's a reprint. It was previously an event promo. Libertas is reprinted. Previously only printed Twilight Rebellion 2008. Oxford University, England has been reprinted. Last printed in 2002. Power Base Los Angeles has been reprinted. Previously only printed in 2004. Make the Misery has been reprinted in a sense. It was available previously as part of the print and play sets that we had. Open War has been reprinted. Previously it was last printing was 2008. Public Trust was reprinted. Previous printing also 2008. Likewise, Disputed Territory. Stolen Police Cruiser, last printed 2003. And Disarm, last printed in 2006. Those are the reprints in this deck. Any ones that jump up specifically to you, John?
I'm quite excited for Brujah Debate. Ever since the first Brujah deck came out and I had a look at that crypt, I just felt like Alien is built to debate, and that was the way I would ever build Brujah Anarchs. And the only thing that kept me from actually putting the deck together was the price of debates. So now that you get 3 in this box, I am a happy chap.
For those of you at home who are not familiar with the card, Brujah Debate is a 1 pool cost master that requires Brujah put his card into play. During each Methuselah's master phase, that Methuselah locks one of the oldest Brujah they control, if any. All Brujah get +1 strength and 1 optional maneuver each combat, and non-Ventrue minions can burn this card as a directed action. I also like to see how, especially the players who've only come in 5th edition, it'll be interesting to see how they react to Brujah Debate.
Well, the thing is, what's not immediately obvious about the card is that it's not unique, right? You can have multiple debates, which means you would lock the same, or you could lock multiple Brujah if they were the same capacity, but ideally you would lock the same Brujah multiple times to satisfy its condition, and then all the rest of your Brujah would get +1 strength and an optional maneuver for each debate. So that means if you have 2 or 3 debates on the table, that your vampires get 2 or 3 strength and 2 or 3 maneuvers. That is a big deal. Pair that with Child of the Revolutions, your 1 caps are now, 3 strength with a maneuver or something silly like that.
Yeah, it definitely helps with the hunting as well, because now, instead of the usual sort of way to deal with, say, something like Child of the Revolution is to let the acting vampire spend the blood to put it into play and then block the hunt, because then you cost both blood and not really let your opponent gain any resources. strictly speaking.
And then you hands the child for one and knock it back into torpor. Now that child has the option of, hitting back for 3 or just maneuvering to long twice, or however many debates you have.
The other thing as well is it's also got this cheeky. It's actually everyone who locks the oldest Brujah on their turn. Yeah. So you might accidentally come across another Brujah deck who are not playing, actual Brujah debate, and then all of a sudden, especially if they I guess it's sort of a mixed bag. It's not really a blessing. It's sort of like a mixed bag, because even though you lock their oldest Brujah, you would assume they're playing like more than one Brujah, and then you're also giving their other Brujahs the benefit. But if they're playing a superstar, hey, it's a lock every turn. You can't block, can't be sudden. Oh, you know what I mean, right?
Yeah, just as you're talking about that, I was thinking about my Demetra deck that plays with the Group 6 Toreador. So if I come across the table with the debate, she gets locked and I get nothing out of it. Yeah, that's a sad time.
Yeah. So it's an interesting card. Anything else jump up in particular to you?
Well, Child of the Revolution plays into Brujah debate.
Yeah.
Of course, but it's also quite relevant in other Anarch decks. Yeah, I could see it being played in Ministry, in Gangrel, quite possibly with Thing. I think that's respectable.
Yeah.
And Gangrel Rebel, is that the card?
Yeah, plus the one with +1 that gives Gangrel +1 strength.
Yep.
Also, if you ever get around to doing a Toreador anti-Tribru Anarch deck, they'll also benefit from Palo Grande. So it's something you could do, and at the end of the day, it's a bonus for sort of decks that you want to play a breed deck, but you don't really want to be a Prince deck or a Archbishop, like a titled Sabbat deck. So you don't really want to run Progeny or Creation Rites. I think mainly if you want to play any of the Anarch toys. Club Illusion, even though the child is a 1-cap, potentially 2, it's an option. And I think, like you mentioned earlier as well, the Anarchs can get away with a lot more just with inferior disciplines. So the child becomes a lot stronger than what it actually looks like at face value.
Yep. The only problem being, if you want that discipline card, you would probably want to play some of the printed Anarchs, which you're limited to some of the more recent printings. Like if you wanted to do Toreador anti, good luck getting Barons. I guess it's a lot of effort.
That is a good point. I completely, for some reason, just forgot that it doesn't just require Anarchs, it requires actual Barons.
Yeah.
The other thing with the inferior discipline as well is there's another reprint in this deck that I think makes blocking Child of Revolution quite tricky, and that is Disarm. If you get, say, Potence onto Child of Revolution, Disarm is a thing, especially in a Brujah debate deck. I mean, you could imagine a Brujah debate Child of Revolution deck that runs a handful of, say, maybe 2 or 3 Disarms and then some Glancing Blows, and you try to stop the hunt from the child, and then imagine you're, a big fat vampire gets hit for 2 and then gets sent to torpor with a Disarm. And the other thing is Disarm being reprinted in this deck, unless you already have a bunch of it, because Disarm was at some point pretty pricey in the secondary market. This is a good time to see if the reprinting of, I don't know if you would call this staple in a Potence deck, I think I would run 2 at least in a potent deck with at least some form of combat.
Yep, 2's about right.
Yeah, mainly because even if I don't run prevents, a taunt signpost, hands for 3, you trade hands for 1, and then all of a sudden your hands for 3 means a lot more than just 3 damage.
Speaking of reprints of cards that were pricey,
Yeah.
Power Base Los Angeles, I think is a solid reprint, and having it in this box is a very convenient way to get it.
Oh yeah, I love Power Base Los Angeles. We were talking about it before, and I think one of the biggest things for me for Power Base Los Angeles is it is, you know, if nothing else, it is just a straight up extra discard phase action. Even if you're not running it as an Anarch sort of deck, it's still relevant.
Yep, I think I used to run it in Io Igoli, is that right?
Yeah, because Io Goli has a discard phase special as well.
Yeah, the other strong bit about it is you do get an unlock out of it, which is good for blocking, bouncing. Yeah. Good stuff. Libertas is another solid master card. What it does is you put it on an Anarch. Allies cannot block this Anarch at all. Solid. That means Galton, Ponticulus, Legionnaires.
Yeah.
That's all good. Cards requiring Dominate or Presence cost an extra blood while they are acting or attempting to block or in combat.
Just to clarify, that's costing other minions, not costing your own minion. So when your minion, when the minion that has Libertas on it is acting, other minions pay more for any card that requires Dominate or Presence. Sorry, acting, attempting to block, or in combat. So
Yep.
what is it about this card that you like?
Well, let's consider what... aside from the allies can't block thing, let's consider what cards it actually increases the blood cost of. So, Deflections, Redirect, Murmur of the False Will, all very good. Majesty,
Yeah.
Bonding, Conditioning, also good.
I'm not
But-
convinced though.
In Brujah, I'm not as big a fan. But you slip this into a Ministry Stealth Bleed and pair that with Narrow Minds, you are getting quite pricey to bounce.
Yeah, you basically almost price most decks out of second deflection. So instead of being able to just deflect at will, it's now a huge decision. Do you deflect or not deflect? Because deflection now costs 3.
Yep.
I think my issue really with this card is that it's trying to do too many things, potentially, mainly because of the 1 pull cost. So I think allies not being able to block this Anarch is a good line of text. It holds us imbued straight up, so if your prey is imbued, good luck to them. But for the 1 pull, I'm not sure. I assume the 1 pull also factors into the fact that the additional blood cost applies in multiple different scenarios. But what I think is it's not really that reasonable to assume that you will be able to fit this into, anyone will be able to fit this into a deck that can, I guess, reliably pull off all 3 situations, right? So
yeah, I think the 1 pull cost is a very reasonable price. The challenging thing is the competition for that master phase action.
Oh yeah, that too. This is not a trifle.
It is not a trifle.
Although having said that, here's me going off on a tangent. I think maybe in recent years we're all spoiled by the sheer number of trifles, and we kind of think that trifle is a default rather than the exception.
I would say it's the default, but it is a staple that you're gonna run some trifle package.
But outside of that, yeah, I mean, I get where you're coming from. The allies not being able to block this Anarch does come into play more often than, you know, on paper you would think it does. And that cheeky, you know, Libertas plus Narrow Minds really does mean your bleeds can land pretty reliably.
Yeah. And if you're running bigger vamps, I guess you could be cute and slap 2 Libertas on a vamp.
Ah, yeah, that's right. Doesn't say it's not an archetype. I think the other card that I wanted to talk about was the Stolen Police Cruiser, because we were having a little bit of a chat about it before as well, and I wasn't too convinced that the drawback, which is that I think, let me read the card. So Stolen Police Cruiser is a equipment vehicle only usable by an Anarch. This Anarch gets +1 bleed. Allies and younger vampires get -1 intercept when attempting to block this Anarch. Any vampire can earn this card as a directed action that costs 1 pool, and if that action is successful, this Anarch is locked and does not unlock as normal during his or her unlock phase. A minion may only have 1 vehicle. So I kind of see these as a camera phone without restrictions, without the bleed restrictions around bleeding. But
You mean the restriction to use it as your action, right?
yes, that's the one. But I'm not convinced that like the drawbacks worth the benefits.
Or
Realistically, what I see happening is you equip this and then your prey immediately takes the action to get rid of it. I think it's always worth the action to burn it. So you would have taken an action which you could have bled for 1, which is what cost that 1 pool anyway, and then you lose your action on the next turn. So I just don't know.
So there are cards with a similar effect where your vamp gets +1 bleed, but your prey can take an action to burn it, right? I think there's like Mercy for Seth or something like that, and maybe a couple others. Am I? Oh no.
I feel like
Is it Pennant?
I feel like this is
Is it
the only
Pennant?
one.
No, there's a combat card where you strike combat ends and then you slap it on them and you get +1 bleed.
Ah, Unholy Penance.
That's the one.
Yeah.
Does that also get burned immediately?
That one's a little bit tricky because that's a combat card. So you could, in theory,
It doesn't cost you an action to slap it down. It's incidental.
that's right.
But I guess my point is burning a +1 bleed card isn't always like the obvious action to take. Sometimes their prey has something more tasty to go after.
Like pool.
And especially since that action costs a pool, like, do I spend a pool to burn it, or do I just let them have +1 bleed? It's more or less the same thing. And, you know.
So my thinking is this: that action that my predator took to equip Stolen Police Cruiser would have been a bleed for 1 anyway, because that's the default. So that's my 1 pool. So I'm not losing anything there. The only thing I'm losing is my vampire taking action. So then it becomes my vampire takes an action to cause one of my predator's vampire to lose an action. And I think that's worth it, because otherwise why would people play Mind Numb, right?
But the point still stands. You would probably still... I would still run this over camera phone because it lets you get that plus bleed on top of illegalism or
Platinum Protocol.
line brawl or camera phone. No, you can't use it with camera phone because camera phone has text that says you can't.
Alright, anyway, I think those are some of the key reprints that have sort of caught our attention.
Okay, so I just want to make a honorable mention. Bait and Switch and Organized Resistance. If you haven't already bought 6 copies of the Brujah deck, this is a lot better package to get them out of.
Yeah, because you get 5 Organized Resistance straight up, and then it's the same 2 Bait and Switch. Plus, there's a new card, right?
Yep.
Child of Revolution. You will have a use for it at some point.
And you get the bait, then you get Saku.
Yeah. And you get Lumia.
I feel a lot better buying like, I guess 2 of each or 1 and 3 or something like that than 4 or 5 of the Brujah deck. So yeah, that's definitely worth mentioning.
Yep, that is true. So next up, a quick chat about the strategy of, I guess, this deck, plus, how some of the cards would work outside of the deck. I think the deck strategy is pretty straightforward. It is a debate with Child of Revolution, and then you go. I think it's a combination of either your choice of Bruce Bleed, or you try to make use of Neonate Breach and Consanguineous Boon. It's not really, doesn't really lean into the whole political shrewdness bit of the blurb on the website.
Yeah, I'm not sure shrewdness is the right word. It's like political bluntness.
Yeah, I think it's really more of a Bruce Bleed. It's got a bit of enter combat options that you could use to cycle out some of your combat cards if you get too many in your hand, but generally it kind of looks like what you want to do is put out the Child of Revolution and then just bleed, even if it's just for 1 multiple times.
Yep, bleeding for 1, it works.
If you do it 30 times, that is A player.
Yep, as mentioned earlier, if you're playing it out of the box and you get Saku, maybe think twice about playing the debates at all. But if you can get a hold of Aline, that's game on.
I think I would go the other way, which is if you get Saku if you're just playing this deck, if you get Saku in your opening crypt, just ignore him. Like, just don't. Because you have...
Don't.
Yeah.
It's a dead card.
I mean, sorry Jan, but you don't belong in this deck, man. One of the things I noticed looking through all the cards in the deck is that it's trying to pull itself, like, don't get me wrong, if you're looking to, get into the game, or even if you're an existing player or a long-time player, definitely get this deck. It's got a lot of cards that are really good, a lot of reprints that haven't been reprinted for a while, that are actually really useful. But get two, yeah. I mean, get 3 even, honestly. But as a deck, it feels very undecided as to what it really wants to do. Like, Bruce Bleed, for one, is, like I said before, is the most obvious, but then looking at it, you've got 5 Organized Resistance, so you're looking to, unlock and block a bunch. You've got 3 Consanguineous Boon, so you want to go wide and just bloat a little bit. For me, at least, feels like it's trying to do too many things. I actually feel like it might not stack up against the other New Blood decks.
I'm not on board with that.
No?
No. I mean, the cards don't all contribute to the same game plan. Like, make the Misere, Saku, Disputed Territory, Neonate Breach. Those are all what would you call it? They're not
Bruce Lee.
They're not Bruce Bleed. Fair enough. Yeah. There are a couple key cards which would really turn this whole deck on. For one, Club Illusion.
Yeah.
I'm fond of the combo between Illegalism and Line Brawl. So if you're scary enough, an Illegalism bleed for 2 might just go through. Follow that up with a Line Brawl steal for 1, and that was a productive vampire.
Even if you decide to go with the breed option with Child of Revolution and Celerity, a child can do that. So that's actually 3 bleed from a 2 cap.
Unfortunately, Illegalism has a chemistry option, so you're not going to see it reprinted in any decks anytime soon, but I believe it is print on demand, so that's how you can get a hold of that.
I would also chuck in 2 more copies at least of Bait and Switch. 2 is a little risky to be sitting on, because even with, you don't really want to be overly reliant on Consanguineous Boon, even if you're going wide. There are some really scary bleeders out there. Dominate. New Cartage is an interesting inclusion in this deck. So 5 Barons means that if you don't want to play the Brujah debate game, New Cartage means that each of your Barons are bleeding for 2.
Yep. So with 5 Barons, that is a
5 extra
pretty filled up. Yeah, it's a filled up crypt full of Barons, all with +1 bleed, and that's something that Saku will shine in.
Yeah. So in a deck like that, say maybe a handful of Enchant Kindreds to accelerate your other Barons, and then all of a sudden your Legalism into Line Brawl is a bleed of 3, and then a stealing of 1 pool. It's 4 pool a turn. It's not nothing. Imagine if you're running Show of Force.
No thanks.
Not a fan.
I need to have another look at it. I remember looking at it, thinking about it, and then just like forgetting about it. So let me have a.
So this is the interesting thing. I was having a chat. I was in a game the other day, and one of the players played Show of Force, and I didn't realize that there has been a change in card text since, because Show of Force was originally in the print and play sets, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Inferior used to be +1 bleed and +1 strength, and then Superior is only +1 bleed but +2 strength. It went from that to Superior is now +2 bleed and +2 strength. So the extra 1 more bleed, I think, makes it actually worth playing.
Yeah, the problem with it in Anarchs is they're not consistently superior, right? Out of your 5 Barons, I think only 2 of them actually can play it at superior, just because of patchy disciplines.
Yeah, that's an Anarch special, having patchy disciplines. Fair enough. I keep forgetting that. You're not the first person to point that out to me. Yeah, so in conclusion, I think overall this is a pretty decent deck. I will pick it up just for the cards. Like, even if you're not playing in a New Blood only game, or even if you're starting out, you're new to the game, someone introduced it to you, you don't know what to pick up, just this one. 2 copies of this, 3 copies of this you just throw it together and it's an amazing deck.
You would want one copy of the actual Brujah deck
You think so?
and splash. Yeah, I mean, just for the crypt cards, really. That said, the secondary market for those vampires in the Brujah started. I'm sure there are plenty to go around.
Yeah. And also, like you mentioned earlier, John, that Brujah debate's not unique, so having 6 copies isn't necessarily a bad thing.
Oh yeah, I would definitely run 5 or 6 easy.
Yeah. Imagine, punch for 7. With no effort.
Your one cap punches for 7.
Yeah. No disciplines
Yeah,
required.
You want to block that hunt for 1? Yeah, I didn't think so.
Oh my god, you're starting to sound like some cheesy B-grade movie villain. So I think with that, we've come to the end of the deck review. Thank you, John, once again for being the co-host.
Good to be here.
And yeah, we hope you found this helpful. And if you think we've missed anything, or if there's a topic you would like to see us explore, let us know in the comments. And until next time, see ya.
Bye bye.